Artificial intelligence, war, social justice, challenges of new Pope Leo XIV. Something strange is happening. For the first time in history, a pope has been elected in an era where algorithms attempt to predict even human thoughts. At the same time, the world is burning with both silent and declared wars, while social justice has become a muffled cry drowned out by empty rhetoric. In this tense scenario, an unexpected figure emerges, Leo XIV, bearing a weight that few truly understand. This isn't just about leading a church. It's about guiding the conscience of billions in a time when truth is disputed, faith is distracted, and even morality seems programmable. Here's a reality check. If you think these issues are distant from your life, you might be looking in the wrong direction. Because the way we communicate, work, raise our children, and even pray, everything is already being shaped by invisible forces that few truly grasp. And if you still believe that religion has nothing to do with technology or global politics, you might be holding on to a world that no longer exists. The Catholic Church, with its millennia-old tradition, once again finds itself at a historic crossroads. And the new pope, despite being newly appointed, has already moved significant pieces on this chessboard. Now, imagine if you could see all of this clearly. If you understood the real role this pontiff may take on in a time when chaos seems to be the only constant. Imagine having access to the wisdom that connects the past of saintly scholars with today's digital dilemmas. This journey you are about to embark on isn't just about religion, it's about identity, truth, and choices. And it might impact you far more than you realize. Because understanding what's at stake here is the first step toward not just being another spectator in this new era. Get ready. Because what you're about to discover may change the way you see faith, politics, history, and even your place in the world. Being the first always comes with extra weight, and Pope Leo XIV knows that well. He is not just Peter's successor but now carries the title of being the first pontiff elected under the watchful eye of artificial intelligence. Unlike previous conclaves, where white smoke was the ultimate symbol of divine choice, now we have algorithms analyzing behaviors, social networks being monitored, and a society demanding transparency, even in the unseen. AI isn't just lurking behind the scenes, it's at the center of the conversation. The curious thing is that many people haven't even realized how much this technology already influences decisions we once believed were purely human. And this is where the journey of this new pope begins, walking a minefield between the sacred and the digital. It's as if the church is being invited, or pushed, to step down from the altars and engage with the screens. The current pope arrives at the throne of St. Peter in a world where robots write speeches, algorithms shape opinions, and fake news turns into truth within minutes. The challenge here isn't just pastoral, it's deeply political and cultural. How can one exercise spiritual authority in a time when information moves faster than reflection? How can faith maintain its essence amid a flood of data? And even more, how can one be heard when everyone is speaking at once and truth has become a matter of algorithms? It's essential to remember that throughout history, the Church has learned to use the tools of each era, from Gutenberg's press to Pius XI's radio, to John Paul II's television presence. The question now isn't whether the Church should use artificial intelligence, but how. He can't just react, he must lead. And to do that, he needs to understand not only the gospel but also the source code of the modern world. That requires a rare skill, the ability to move seamlessly between the silence of prayer and the noise of digital networks. Take a simple example. The decision to have an official profile on platforms like X or Instagram already says a lot about how he intends to engage with the world. That's why Leo XIV enters history not just because of his election, but because of the context in which it happened. And let's be honest, being chosen in an era where bots detect trends and privacy is an illusion completely changes the game. He knows he will be judged not only by the faithful or theologians but also by data, analytics, and digital behavior experts. His challenge? To be a spiritual leader without turning into a stage influencer. And that's where we begin to understand why his mission goes beyond the Church. It reaches the entire world, especially in such turbulent times. When bombs speak louder than dialogues and borders seem drawn in blood, the figure of the Pope takes on a new urgency. He can no longer be just a spiritual reference. He must become a bridge between sides that no longer even look at each other. Conflicts erupt across continents, some armed, others ideological, and Pope Leo XIV steps into this landscape like someone holding a candle in the middle of a hurricane. His presence isn't symbolic, it's essential. The peace he preaches isn't abstract, it's the peace of someone who holds the hands of grieving parents, who speaks for those who no longer have a voice. And perhaps that's precisely why the world expects more from him than from any politician. Look closely. When leaders remain silent or engage in belligerent rhetoric, it is the Church that must raise its voice, not to shout, but to remind the world that human dignity is non-negotiable. History has already proven this, from John Paul II speaking out against the Cold War to Francis condemning the horrors in Syria and Ukraine. Leo XIV does not arrive in a more peaceful world, quite the opposite. But he carries an advantage. He steps into a moment when people are desperate for a message that isn't rooted in hatred. That changes everything. Because deep down, even those on the front lines want to hear someone speak of hope, without sounding naive. A pope who stands for peace does not act alone, he inspires. He influences presidents, religious leaders, everyday citizens. With a single statement, he can calm tensions or awaken consciences. Imagine the impact of a visit to a refugee camp, broadcast live to the world. Or a homily that goes viral, not because it's incendiary, but because it has the power to reconcile. This isn't utopian, it's a strategy of presence. It's using the reach of the Church as a megaphone for peace. And in a time when war thrives on polarization, having a pope who insists on dialogue is almost revolutionary. But of course, it isn't easy. Speaking of peace in times of war requires more than well-crafted speeches, it demands courage. Courage to defy powerful interests, to resist pressure, to stand firm when neutrality seems like the safest path. And Leo XIV appears ready for that. His commitment to peace is not a diplomatic stance, it is an embodied vocation. And that makes him a critical figure in a world ablaze. Speaking of social justice within the Church is not a trend, it's a legacy. Since the time of the Church Fathers, like St. Ambrose and St. Basil, concern for the poor has been an essential part of faith, not just a moral appendix. Pope Leo XIV draws from this well. He knows that when the Church defends those in need, it isn't adopting a social agenda, it is being faithful to the gospel. The Catholic tradition has always seen Christ himself in the suffering of others. And the Church's social doctrine exists precisely to remind us of this. It's not about ideology, but identity. Identity born from the cross and carried forward by the footsteps of the saints. From his first words and actions, the new Pope has made it clear that he will not treat justice as an abstract concept. His perspective closely aligns with that of St. Thomas Aquinas, who spoke of a just order as an expression of the common good. To him, justice is not merely about giving each person what they are due. It is also about ensuring that no one is deprived of what is essential to human dignity. This requires not only systemic reform but also a transformation of hearts. Leo XIV does not call for a fight against poverty with fiery speeches. He calls the Church to love more, serve better, and be closer to the least among us. Looking at St. Catherine of Siena, for example, we see a woman who, despite being a layperson, did not hesitate to challenge popes and leaders to restore justice both within and beyond the Church. And today, more than ever, Leo XIV seems inspired by that same boldness. He has already made it clear that he expects Catholic communities to take a more active role, to care for abandoned elders, be present in forgotten neighborhoods, and sustain works of mercy with the same zeal they used to adorn altars. None of this requires sweeping political reforms, it demands personal and ecclesial conversion. Perhaps most fascinating is how he reignites in the faithful a living memory of charity as a social force. He echoes the words of St. Vincent Delaware Paul, who said, "To love God is to serve the poor with one's own hands." Leo XIV amplifies this call, urging the Church to abandon complacency and once again become a visible sign of the kingdom. No longer can we wait for those in need to come to our temples, we must go to them, with humility, bread, listening, and prayer. And perhaps, by doing so, the Church will shine once more with the light that once set the world ablaze. It's impossible to hear the name Leo XIV without immediately recalling Leo XIII in Catholic memory. And it's no coincidence. By choosing this name, the new Pope isn't merely paying tribute to a predecessor, he is igniting a historical torch. Leo XIII was the great architect of Rerum Novarum, a milestone that not only laid the foundation for the Church's social doctrine but also positioned Catholicism within the modern debate on the dignity of labor and justice. Now, Leo XIV seems to be aiming toward a similar horizon, a world in crisis, disoriented, yet still hungry for meaning. And this gives us valuable clues about the path he intends to take. Just as Leo XIII engaged with the great thinkers of his time, Leo XIV appears to be doing the same, tackling today's challenges: artificial intelligence, integral ecology, war, and human dignity. The similarities go beyond the name. They lie in his willingness to face the world fearlessly. While Pope Leo XIII confronted the impacts of the Industrial Revolution, the current Leo faces the dilemmas of the digital revolution. Both arrived with prophetic courage and a rational faith deeply rooted in tradition. He is not a pope who shies away from modernity, he is one who seeks to illuminate it from within. A defining aspect of both is how they integrate faith and reason. Leo XIII profoundly valued the thought of St. Thomas Aquinas, reaffirming that there is no contradiction between science and faith. Leo XIV follows the same path, advocating for the Church to engage with technological advancements with discernment rather than fear. He does not demonize science, he calls for wisdom in its use. An interesting parallel, just as Leo XIII did not oppose workers' struggle for dignity, Leo XIV does not oppose innovation, so long as it respects the centrality of the human person. In other words, the heart of the teaching remains the same. Perhaps their greatest similarity lies in the quiet firmness they both embody. Leo XIII was a diplomat of faith. Leo XIV seems to be following the same path, not shouting, but not staying silent either. His words thus far have demonstrated doctrinal clarity and pastoral openness, a rare combination. And by doing so, he rekindles in the faithful a hope for a church that knows where it came from and knows where it is going. Because if Leo XIII lit the flame of social thought, perhaps Leo XIV is now holding up a lantern to guide us through this digital forest. Technology by itself is neutral. But how we use it, that says a lot about who we are. And Pope Leo XIV seems to understand this dilemma well. In an era where artificial intelligence can generate texts, faces, voices, and even parallel realities, the Church is called not to condemn, but to guide. Responsibility and discernment are not decorative words. They are ethical keys that can prevent AI from becoming just another modern idol. The Pope does not ignore technology's potential, nor is he blindly enamored with it. He reminds us that without a moral compass, even the brightest innovations can be used to manipulate, deceive, or harm. This is where the Church's mission gains a new layer, shaping consciences for the digital age. Teaching doctrine alone is not enough, we must teach people how to filter information. One of the Pope's greatest concerns is communication, how to speak truth in a world where even lies can seem convincing. Artificial intelligence, when misused, becomes a factory of versions rather than truths. And here is where discernment plays its role, knowing when, how, and why to use certain technologies. And this can be learned. From childhood catechesis to seminary training, the Church must prepare people to recognize humanity, even behind a screen. Leo XIV, contrary to what many expected, does not position himself against modernity. He simply does not want modernity to become an end in itself. Pope Francis has been encouraging the use of AI to make papal messages accessible in multiple languages and formats, reaching people with disabilities or those in remote regions. That is wisdom in action. The issue is not progress, it is the abandonment of the soul. If technology helps evangelize, educate, and promote human dignity, it is welcome. But if it serves only empty entertainment, or reinforces ideological echo chambers, then alarms must sound. And on a deeper level, the faithful, communicators, and society at large are called to an internal reflection. Pray before you publish. It sounds simple, but it is essential. AI may write for you, but the intention of the heart remains irreplaceable. This applies to influencers, teachers, priests, and parents alike. Responsibility is collective. And if the church can become a beacon of critical awareness amidst the whirlwind of automated content, then perhaps it is more present than ever. Words build bridges, or walls. And today, the world seems more barricaded than connected. Pope Leo XIV understands this, which is why he spoke firmly to journalists recently, "Enough with the war of words." It was not just a poetic phrase, it was an urgent call. In an era where every comma becomes ammunition and every headline becomes a trench, he invites communicators to step out of the boxing ring and return to their original vocation, to seek and tell the truth. Because when journalism becomes merely a tool for opinion, it ceases to be a service and turns into a battle. And the world is already weary of battles. The Pope's words were not a rebuke, they were a plea. A plea for communication to be a vehicle of peace, not confusion. And not just in traditional journalism, he was also speaking to those who post stories, record podcasts, or write tweets. Every word we share carries weight. What he proposes is simple yet transformative, that we think before we post, listen before we respond, and choose unity over division. This isn't naivety, it's maturity. And let's be honest, in a world where everyone is eager to prove they're right, hearing a leader who calls for more empathy than arguments is already a disruption of logic. He also emphasized something that should be obvious but has been largely forgotten: truth has no side, nor is it relative. In times of polarization, when even facts become a matter of preference, Leo XIV reminds us that the Christian's commitment is to reality, not narratives. And speaking the truth is not always the most comfortable path. At times, it may upset the audience, friends, or even superiors. But it is truth that liberates. The Pope reiterates that peace is born from truth, a phrase that echoes the Gospels as well as the wisdom of great Catholic communicators, like Saint Francis Delaware Sales, the patron saint of journalists, who wrote with gentleness even in hostile times. The question that lingers is this: are we truly willing to speak less and listen more? To condemn less and bear witness more? Because the war of words may not destroy buildings, but it ruins reputations, divides families, and erodes trust. Leo XIV points to a different path, the one of construction, not destruction. And perhaps this same communication, if well guided, can help the world face its greatest dilemmas, including those tied to the new revolutions already knocking at our door. History shows that whenever the world shifted, the Church never fled from crossroads, it positioned itself at their center. That was true during the fall of the Roman Empire, the invention of the printing press, the Enlightenment, and the Industrial Revolution. And now, in the age of artificial intelligence and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, it is no different. What many see as a crisis, the Church sees as a calling, a call to vigilance, presence, and discernment. Because when the world rushes forward, it is the Church's mission to ensure that humanity is not left behind. Whenever technological progress threatened to distort the human face, the Church responded with the truth of its anthropology. When machines crushed the dignity of workers, Rerum Novarum was born. When science attempted to push God out of the universe, Vatican I reaffirmed that faith and reason are not enemies. And now, with AI promising autonomy without a soul, the ecclesial tradition reminds us once again, man is made in the image and likeness of God, and no technology can redefine that. The Church's response has never been against progress, but always in favor of the person. This stance is visible in the writings of the great doctors of the Church, who faced their own revolutions. St. Augustine engaged with the intellectuals of Rome's decline. St. Thomas Aquinas organized faith amidst the surge of Aristotelian thought. St. Teresa of Avila reformed spiritual life in an era of growing skepticism. Catholic tradition has never been passive, it has always shaped minds and hearts so that each era could be lived with wisdom. And now, in the face of the digital revolution, the expectation is the same, that Catholics be formed to use modern tools without being controlled by them. And this movement has already begun. dioceses investing in ethical formation, universities revisiting perennial philosophy, Catholic schools reclaiming the deeper meaning of integral education. All of this points to a church that, once again, adapts without compromising and moves forward without losing its essence. Because true Catholic tradition is not rigidity, it is faithful permanence in the midst of chaos. And it is precisely this fidelity that lays the foundation for facing the great dilemmas of our time, with light, not fear. Now that you've immersed yourself in this sea of reflections, I ask, what will you do with all of this? It's easy to look at humanity's great questions and feel small in the face of overwhelming challenges. But in truth, the world's greatest changemakers were always those who refused to be intimidated and instead made decisions, small or large, that altered the course of history. And now you have power, the power to choose. How can you apply this understanding in your daily life? You can start with simple choices, like verifying the accuracy of what you share online or being more critical in your own communication habits. Don't underestimate the impact of a well-placed word or a gesture of empathy. The Pope, through all his teachings, does not call us to passivity. He challenges us to be more conscious, more present, and more human in the midst of this digital revolution. And if you want to continue exploring these big themes and transforming your understanding of the world, society, and the Church, subscribe to the channel now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any content that will help you grow, prepare, and connect more deeply with the challenges of our time. Let's walk together toward a more enlightened future, with the courage to act and the wisdom to choose. Are you ready for change? Then don't wait. The change starts now.